Welcome to A Course in Miracles, where you'll discover health and well-being through inner peace. Your host is Eloisa Ramos, EFT master and author of Beyond Self-Esteem, Discovering Your Boundless Self-Worth. Using EFT, the Ramos clearing technique, and the principles of A Course in Miracles, you'll learn how to open your mind to healing and to all that is inherently yours: deep fulfillment, vitality, joy, and inner peace.
Welcome, everyone, to today's program, What is the Body? My name is Eloisa Ramos, and in today's program, we're seeking to understand what is this human body we feel to be us, and is it real or illusion? A Course in Miracles teaches that the body is a dream, witnessing for the idea that we are separate from each other and our source. Today, we want to explore why it feels like we are contained inside a body and why that feels real. We will explore the physical boundaries we perceive as our body and do a little bit of EFT tapping to release the sensation of being contained inside the body. We will also look at the important issue of safety, since our identity is tied to it. Quote, "You will identify with what you think will make you safe. Whatever it may be, you will believe that it is one with you." Unquote. Page 425 of the lessons. So, as long as we see any safety in the body or ego, it will be difficult to let go of our ego-body identification and see ourselves as spirit. Ultimately, we need to decide what we want to believe we are: body, ego, or spirit. And let me be clear, we're not choosing what we are. That is established in truth and cannot be changed, but rather what we want to believe we are. Choosing to believe in an identity that promises death, or one that promises eternal life, could not be a difficult choice if we perceived clearly and sanely. So, we seek perceptual clarity to help us choose again. Let's begin by reviewing the origins of separation for a bit to help us understand the purpose the body has been serving. A Course in Miracles says we wished for the impossible to be special. This is an ego idea, and God could not give us that because in the truth of oneness, there is no separation, and separation is necessary to be special in an exclusionary way. To be more than or better than, we need two or more to compare differences, judge, and evaluate which is more special than the other. This is impossible in oneness. In addition, implied in the desire for specialness is a judgment that says we are lacking. This is so because without that judgment that we are lacking, we would see ourselves as whole and complete and would not need anything. So, the wish to be special could not arise from a mind that recognizes its wholeness. Only if and when we see ourselves as lacking, and the ego sees everything that way, do we identify with ego body and wish for specialness in an exclusionary form. In other words, wishing to be more than someone else would have no value and be pointless if we recognized our oneness and wholeness, because that state leaves nothing to be desired in its fullness and completeness. It lacks nothing, and therefore has everything and is everything. So, as we mentioned in our previous program, the origin of separation was the belief that we could be lacking and therefore different and separate from our Creator. To make such an impossible idea appear possible, perception was needed, since it uses subjective interpretation and not absolute truth. The Course says we needed something to perceive and something to perceive with. Our body is made to perceive, and we think it is being acted upon by an external environment because that's what it perceives. We think the body's 5 senses are the ones identifying and telling us what something is. We think that the data the senses transmit in and of themselves identify us as a body or a tree. Let's look at this a little closer to see that this is not what is happening here. When we perceive a tree, we're using our 5 senses to taste, touch, see, hear, and smell it. This information we believe is unique to the tree and is telling us the identity of what it is. When we perceive our body, we think our perception is also telling us accurately the reality of what we are. We think that our limited sensory data has total accuracy and certainty, and so we think we are perceiving reality. But let's consider what sensory data a dog or a cat picks up when they encounter a tree. Since cats and dogs have a higher sense of smell and hearing than we do, they will pick up sensory data we missed. Since our sense of touch is more refined than theirs, we will pick up finer and more detailed data with respect to texture than the cat and dog. So, what we come to know as a tree or our experience of a tree will be different from how a cat or dog experiences a tree. I definitely have a different experience and relationship to a tree than my dog. I can see that every day when I go walking with our dog. Yet, we're talking about the same thing, a tree. However, our particular physical senses give us different information, and so our experience is different. Since this is the case, can the sensory data itself be identifying the tree as a tree? No, because whatever a tree is in reality, our senses and the dog's senses are not in agreement about it. Our sensory data is not making a tree a tree. Our mind is interpreting the sensory data and concluding what it is based on comparing that data to past learning. We have learned to label that particular set of sensory data a tree. It is a made-up interpretation that we learned. If our mind were to receive the sensory data that a dog or a cat picks up from a tree, our mind would not have any interpretation associated with that set of data from its past experience, and so would be at a loss for what it is, meaning it would not have a label to assign to it. This is how something is given an identity by our mind. The mind interprets sensory data based on past learning and gives that data the identity of tree or body or rock, etc. Our particular experience with trees will give the label tree personal meaning and determine our interaction with it. That's why a dog interacts with a tree differently than I do. The tree has different meaning to it. This is where the early lessons of the Course come into play. It wants us to notice the subjectivity of perception. Lesson 1 says, quote, "Nothing I see means anything." And Lesson 2 says, quote, "I have given everything I see all the meaning that it has for me," unquote. The meaning I give to what is represented by the word tree depends on my past experiences, which are subjective. Even among people, the word tree will have a different meaning depending on the purpose the tree serves for them. If one person sees it as fuel, they will want to chop it down. The purpose of the tree is to keep them warm. If another sees it as essential to generating oxygen, they will try to preserve it and not want to cut it down. For them, a tree's purpose is to give them oxygen to breathe. To know the tree in truth, we would have to let go of perception and allow the truth to be revealed to us. This knowledge would not be subjective, but universal and absolute. So, with perception, if we want to see things differently, we can. We just need to change or let go of our thinking or past learning. When we apply this to the body, A Course in Miracles is helping us to see the body differently, to change our mind by giving the body the purpose of supporting and witnessing to love instead of separation and attack. The word tree, like the word body, is an interpretation, a reflection, or a representation. They all imply that it is not reality itself. Okay? This interpretation can be brought to alignment with the absolute truth of our oneness if we let go of the subjective meaning we have given to it. The perception of separation is referred to as illusion because it is not reflecting accurately the truth of what we are, whole and complete and one with our Creator and all of life. That is the fundamental position that A Course in Miracles takes. Quote, "Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." Unquote. The body can reflect or represent illusion or truth because it blindly follows the mind's instructions. It reacts to any thought the mind entertains and believes, imaginary or not. The body is an instrument of the mind and does not have a mind of its own. The body cannot distinguish or judge between imagination and reality. Here's an example of that. I'm driving and there's a lot of traffic. A car that I couldn't see pulled into the middle lane, but when I saw it, it seemed like it was going to pull right in front of me, and I would not have had time to brake, and I would have hit it. My body reacted instantly with shock and trauma. It tightened up, and I went, "Ah!" The thought, showing the other car pulling into my lane and me colliding with it, flashed through my mind. I had believed the car was going to pull in front of me. The car did not do that in reality. It stayed in the middle lane, and I don't think that it had the intention to pull in front at all. But since I believed it was going to do that, I imaged it and saw it in my mind, and my body reacted as if it had really happened. The body reacts, making no distinction between imaginings and reality. It takes what I believe happened or will happen just as seriously as what is happening now. This is how the body can witness to illusion anything the mind believes is true, including fantasy, becomes real to the body. It reacts to it. Our body's cells are stimulated to carry out the instructions coming from our belief without question, and so the body reacts. This is a point Bruce Lipton in his book Biology of Belief was making. If we believe what is, quote, out there, unquote, in the world is fearful, our body's biology will react accordingly. We have learned to believe the world is fearful. If we change our belief, our biology will have to change. Extending this idea, we can say, if we change our beliefs, we change the world, because our physical reactions form a feedback loop, giving us our experience in the world. And those reactions are coming directly from our beliefs. So, peaceful beliefs give us peaceful experiences, which tell us there is a peaceful world, quote, out there, unquote. Now, let's look at why we think there is an out there. In the introduction to lessons 261 to 280, What is the Body? A Course in Miracles says, quote, the body is a fence the Son of God imagines he has built to separate parts of his self, with a capital S, from other parts. It is within this fence he thinks he lives, to die as it decays and crumbles, unquote. So, the purpose the body has been serving is to represent a fence that feels limiting, but real to us, because our beliefs are giving us physical experiences of that limitation, separation, and death. This fence, called the body, is imaginary, but because we believe in it, our body reacts to itself as if it was real. Let me illustrate this and see if you can experience the unreality of this bounded self we call body. So first, notice your body wherever you are. Okay, just feel it. You can move it around a little bit. You can notice the sensation of the position that you're in. Notice if you can sense feeling contained within your body. Does it feel like you're peering out through your eye sockets onto a world that appears to be outside of your body? So, in relation to a world that appears to be outside of the body, you're going to conclude, I must be inside the body, and it feels like that. Notice how the outer layer of the body's skin seems to be the fence between the outer and the inner, between the world and you. Notice that sensation of self-containment. I can feel it like being inside a dark box. How are you feeling that sensation? Take a moment to notice that sensation of being contained. We're going to tap on this sensation and feeling and see if we can shift that perception for you. Okay, so I'm going to skip the, we're going to begin, but we're not going to begin on the karate chop where EFT starts. Just to save time, we're going to start at the top of the head. And we're going to focus on that sensation of containment. So hopefully with 1 to 3 rounds. that sensation will release, and you will no longer have that sense of containment. Okay, so just start at the top of the head. This sense of containment. And then tap at the beginning of the eyebrow where the bridge of the nose is. For those of you that haven't done tapping, just use 2 fingers, and it doesn't matter which side, which eyebrow. So keep focusing on that sensation of containment as you tap. Okay, and then tap on the side of the eye. Just follow the eyebrow down to the side of the eye. Noticing that sensation of containment. And then come around under the eye. This sensation of containment. And we're using the words to keep our attention focused and tuned in to that sensation. Okay, and then under the nose, above the upper lip, this sensation of containment. And then we're going to do the chin point, which is right below the lower lip. This sensation, feeling contained. And then we're going to go to the collarbone, which is an inch to either side of where the knot of a tie would be. This sensation of containment. And just make sure that you are keeping your attention on that sensation as you're tapping. Okay, and then we're going to go under the arm, either one. You start at the, let's see, if you go 4 inches, right below the underarm, tap there. This sensation of containment. Okay, so take a deep breath. Okay, now check in with the sensation of containment that you started with and see what happened, if anything. We're going to do another round on it. Okay, it's possible that there may be a slightly different sensation now. So I was feeling like I was looking through the sockets of my eyes. So we're going to tap again on that sensation, whatever it is now. Just focus on that. And we're going to go to the top of the head. Okay, this sensation, beginning of the eyebrow, this sensation, side of the eye, this feeling and sensation, under the eye, this feeling and sensation, under the nose, this feeling and sensation. This feeling and sensation that I'm tuning into. Collarbone, this feeling and sensation. And then under the arm, this feeling and sensation. And then deep breath. Okay, and we're going to do just one last round because I really want everyone to be able to experience this shift. So again, reevaluate what happened with that sensation and locate any sense of containment there, any sense that you're on the inside and you're looking out. Okay, and go to the top of the head. And so we're going to tap on that sense of containment that's remaining, beginning of the eyebrow, the sense of containment that's remaining, side of the eye, this remaining sense of containment, under the eye, this remaining sense of containment, under the nose, this remaining sense of containment, chin point, this remaining sense of containment, collarbone, this remaining sense of containment, under the arm, this remaining sense of containment. Okay, deep breath. Okay, so go back to reevaluate that sensation. Now, what you may find now is that Your vision has broadened. Okay? You can sense what is all around, as if you're surrounding your body. It no longer feels like you are inside your body, peering out through your eye sockets. The awareness of your sense of self has expanded outside the body, and it feels like you're looking maybe from behind it a little bit. This sense of self now feels spacious and without defined boundaries. You now have a much broader vista, like being stationed in the center of a wheel, and that turns so you can see everything. There is no fence now. The fence is imaginary or illusion. There is no in or out. It was all made up of physical sensations and internal feelings. So the feeling of being inside of a body, that sense of containment, is ego. It is part of the belief in division. But since it is illusion, it can be released or cleared with EFT and the Ramos clearing technique. If we persistently clear that sensation, the mind will let go of the idea it is contained within a body. It will see that it does not need that limitation to feel safe. However, if I then get in my car and drive, I could still have the sensation that I'm inside the car and my outer boundary is the outside of the car. If I tune into that sensation and the feeling of being contained in the car, I can clear it. And then I won't have that sensation. But, and I did this before, I might still feel contained in the world. I can expand my sense of self-body by releasing these feelings of containment and include everything in the world as part of myself. But now, I may feel contained in the universe. So, when are we free of believing we are a body? That sensation of containment is associated with the idea of limitation or lack. Every limiting thought has an accompanying sensation felt in the body. The feeling or sensation produced by the thought and felt in the body is part of the definition and meaning of limitation. The sensation is not just being produced by the thought or supporting the thought of limitation, but it is part of the meaning that limitation has for us. The concept of limitation feels like I am self-contained, and I feel that in my body. The concept of limitation can be felt only through a body. So the idea of limitation would not have any concrete feel for us without that corresponding sensation or reaction in the body. It would only be a concept, but not feel real. That feeling of concreteness is what we have learned to believe tells us something is real. The fact that we can clear it, though, should tell you that it's not. And because we have learned to believe that's what makes something real, we believe that the body is real. Because it's constantly reacting and we feel the concrete vibrations of its reactions. What the body is offering us is a vibratory sensation or reaction of the thought or image we are believing in. If we accept the thought, quote, I am not a body, I am free, for I am as God created me, unquote, without any resistance to it, body will resonate and vibrate to that thought also. The corresponding sensation or experience we would have through the body would be one of expansion and non-limitation. Again, the body is just taking instructions from the mind and reflecting back to the mind that same vibration through a physical sensory experience. Similar to how a guitar body amplifies the vibration of the strings that get plucked. Our body is amplifying the vibration of the thought to the point that the intensity catches our attention and we become aware of it, making it more difficult to dismiss or disregard. The other reason we think the body is real is because it feels like it has a solid boundary. Now, I'm going to show you that this boundary that outlines the body is not solid nor rigid. Let's take driving a car again as an example. And if you don't drive, just replace a car with a bicycle, a horse, a boat, or you can even just imagine how it would feel driving or riding something. What happens when you're driving very fast and you notice out of the corner of your eye that another car on the next lane begins to pull into your lane where your car is? What do? Done this several times. Without thinking, I swerve away to avoid the car colliding with mine, assuming I have space to do so, of course. How did I do that so automatically? Well, scientists have discovered something they call peripersonal space. And it is, quote, a physiological fact. I'm quoting from the book titled The Body Has a Mind of Its Own by Sandra and Matthew Blakesley. It has very interesting scientific findings, but don't be misled by the title. And if you read it, keep in mind that they use the word brain and mind interchangeably. Quote, the invisible volume of space around your body out to arm's length, what neuroscientists call peripersonal space, is part of you. This is not a metaphor, but a recently discovered physiological fact. Through a special mapping procedure, your brain annexes this space to your limbs and body, clothing you like an extended ghostly skin. Yourself does not end where your flesh ends, but suffuses and blends with the world, including other beings. When you drive a car, your peripersonal space expands to include it, from fender to fender, from door to door, and from tire to roof. As you drive, you can feel the road's texture as intimately as you would through sandals. As you enter a parking garage with a low ceiling, you can, quote, feel, unquote, the nearness of the car's roof to the height barrier as if it were your own scalp. This is why you instinctively duck when you pass under the barrier. When someone hits your car, you get upset. Not just because of the bills and the hassle ahead, but because that person has violated your peripersonal space, no less than a careless elbow in your rib, unquote, page 3 to 4. So, peripersonal space is what we perceive to be our body. That solid boundary we feel between our skin and the air around it is not really there. The body's boundary includes the space within the reach of our limbs and it is flexible, not fixed. Not only that, but scientists have concluded that this so-called boundary or fence can include other things as part of it, like the car, or a baseball bat, or a tall hat, or even a person like your spouse. But I can tell you, from working with clients and doing clearing, that it is not the brain that incorporates other things to this space, because what gets included into this space is also things like social etiquette norms or ideas or beliefs we hold dear. When someone comes too close to these ideas or norms or breaks a social etiquette norm, that becomes a challenge or an attack, and it feels like we are the ones they are challenging and pressing against. This feeling of attack occurs because we have incorporated our beliefs or ideas into this peripersonal space which we consider to be our body. So those things now will be perceived as if they were part of our body. The body then is an imaginary boundary around what we consider to be a part of us that separates us from what is not us. When this boundary is breached, our instinctual reaction is to defend by fighting, fleeing, or freezing, because it feels like our sense of self associated with our peripersonal space has been invaded or attacked. The more we defend this imaginary boundary, the more real the boundary will seem, and the more real our body and separation will feel to us. The point is that the body's boundary is not the skin. This sense of physical self can incorporate anything into its identity. I have called this identification before, and it is mind that is doing the incorporating, not the body itself. The mind, believing it is a body, can change the boundaries of where the body ends by annexing other things into the peripersonal space of the body. And we kind of demonstrated that when we did the tapping. You saw how those boundaries are really there because the mind is perceiving them there. So, when do I use identification or make other things a part of myself? When I feel threatened or unsafe, when there's fear. Quote, identifying with his safety, he regards himself as what his safety is. How else could he be certain he remains within the body, keeping love outside? Unquote. Page 425, Lessons. I identify with my car because I have the belief that says driving is unsafe, and I need the car to keep me safe inside. That's why we wear seat belts, and some of us want to drive a bigger car. In case of a crash, the damage will be less to our vehicle and to our body. Ultimately, everything in the world is unsafe because it can bring about the destruction of the body. Of course, I have to identify myself as a body to believe this and be afraid. It's circular. If you believe you are a body, you will believe that you can be destroyed and that the world is unsafe. And therefore, you're going to identify and make those things, including the body, that you think keep you safe a part of your sense of physical self. As long as you do that, you're going to support the idea that fear and death are real because you're defending yourself from them. This loop feeds upon itself. Unless you can let go of the idea that you're a body and that death is real, you're not going to get yourself out of that loop. It is a self-reinforcing loop of fear, and it exists because we want to believe we can be separate from God. Quote, "The body will not stay, yet this he sees as double safety, for the Son of God's impermanence is," quote, "proof," unquote, "his fences work and do the task his mind assigns to them. For if his oneness still remained untouched, who could attack and who could be attacked? Who could be victor? Who could be his prey? Who could be victim? Who the murderer? And if he did not die, what proof is there that God's eternal Son can be destroyed?" Page 425, Lessons. So, death supports the idea that we are bodies and that we are separate and that life can be destroyed. This is seen as proof that we were right in believing we are separate from our eternal source. We are stuck with fear as long as we want the proof death provides to keep us believing we are a body and separate. We have to believe we are a body and we need death to destroy the body in order to make our ego thinking right and keep the illusion of ego going. Death is the proof, quote, that God's eternal Son can be destroyed, unquote. Page 425. Lessons. Then let's see, the quote continues. "Made to be fearful, must the body serve the purpose given it. But we can change the purpose that the body will obey by changing what we think that it is for. The body is the means by which God's Son returns to sanity. Though it was made to fence him into hell without escape, yet has the goal of heaven been exchanged for the pursuit of hell," unquote. Page 425, Lessons. So, when we choose to use the body to communicate truth, rather than to witness to attack and death, we are uniting with one another and releasing the dream of separation. Quote, "The Son of God extends his hand to reach his brother and to help him walk along the road with him. Now is the body holy. Now it serves to heal the mind that it was made to kill," unquote. Page 425, Lessons. In summary, the body was made to be destroyed, to prove that the Son of God is not the Son of God and separate. So, when the mind identifies with something destructible, it will believe that it dies and can be killed. The body is being used as an instrument to convince the mind that it can be killed. The body cannot kill the mind because the mind is not destructible. But if the mind identifies with a body, the mind will believe it is destructible. Quote, "Your safety lies in truth and not in lies. Love is your safety. Fear does not exist. Identify with love, and you are safe. Identify with love, and you are home. Identify with love, and find yourself, with a capital S, unquote. Page 425, Lessons. This concludes our program for today on What is the Body. Join me again next time when we will be exploring what is the Christ. So thank you again for being with me. Blessings to everyone.
For more information about EFT, muscle testing, working with Eloisa, and to download a free version of the Ramos Clearing Technique, visit www.healingwitheft.com.